Hi, I'm Professor David Richardson. I'm a biology professor and I'm an aquatic ecologist. So I'd like to talk to you about two things today, two things that are affecting our local lakes. So one is acid rain and one is climate change. Both are big scale problems that occur at a regional scale. We have a lot of issues that happen with our lakes at local scales where people are changing the landscape. They're cutting down trees, building parking lots, and this is affecting the aquatic ecosystems and the organisms that live there. But we really see two large problems that happen at these big scales, these continental and global scales. So acid rain is a byproduct of emissions into the atmosphere. When you have coal-fired power plants emitting carbon dioxide, NOx, that's nitrogen oxides, sulfur oxides into the atmosphere, it gets all the way up into the atmosphere and then travels with the jet stream. It travels with the weather patterns across the United States. And especially in locations like in the Midwest, Kentucky, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, these are all locations where coal is mined and coal is used in these power plants. And so what happens is these coal-fired power plants are emitting a lot of pollution up into the atmosphere, and then it travels west to east along the continent with weather patterns and ends up coming out and raining down on the east coast of Canada, east coast of the United States, especially New England, New York, across our areas. And the rain there, because of these pollutants, ends up being very acidic. So it ends up getting into the streams, rivers, and lakes. And so this ends up killing off organisms that live there that are sensitive to acidity. So things like fish, things like amphibians, salamanders, frogs, they also all experience problems with acid rain. And as the rain gets more acidic and as the lakes get more acidic, you see a lot of dead lakes where lakes are losing these organisms. We also see another problem that's happening at a regional and global scale, and that's climate change. And climate change is a byproduct of carbon dioxide emissions coming up into the atmosphere, also from burning of fossil fuels like oils and gas, which emits carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And what that does is creates this greenhouse gas effect where warm heat comes in from the sun and is trapped in the atmosphere, and the planet is warming up, but it's also affecting other weather patterns. It's affecting precipitation, it's affecting rain and snow, as well as big storms. And this also has big problems for local aquatic ecosystems too. When you have things warming up, the lakes and rivers and streams warm up, and there's a lot of organisms that are particularly have evolved to live in colder water systems, and they're really experiencing some harm because of this warming atmosphere and warming lake ecosystems. I work in local ecosystems on the Shawangunk Ridge. This is about half an hour west of campus, where you can see the ridge out of the windows in campus. And there's a series of little lakes that sit on top of this ridge. These lakes came from glaciers at about 15 to 20,000 years ago. As the glaciers kind of dug out the landscape, you had a whole bunch of these little basins that were left. And these are actually pretty deep basins. These end up being 60, 70 feet deep. We have three different ones that we've been studying mainly: Mohonk Lake, Lake Awasting, and Lake Minnewaska. And for two of them, Lake Awasting and Lake Minnewaska, they're really susceptible to acid rain. And so what's happened over the last 120 years, we have records that the last fish that we actually see in Lake Minnewaska and Lake Awasting were over 100 years ago, 120 years ago. And in Mohonk, there's actually shale that's exposed underneath the lake, so that actually buffers the acidity, and the lake has been neutral in terms of its pH for 100 plus years. And the hotel that's right on the side of the lake at Mohonk has been stocking fish for over 100 years for the hotel guests to fish, to eat, and to look at, to feed, and to enjoy. Things have been getting better a fair bit. We've had improvements to technology on some of these coal-fired power plants that scrub out some of the pollutants, especially some of the sulfur pollutants. We also have catalytic converters that have improved on cars. And so we actually have seen a reduction in the acidity in rainwater and improvements over time. And in Minnewaska, we've actually seen fish come back over time as a byproduct of that increasing or improving water quality. Climate change, on the other hand, is going in the other direction. We see increasing carbon dioxide, and ultimately that's resulting in a warming atmosphere, and that is reflected in warming in our local lakes. We also see the ice cover going off earlier, and so the lakes have longer amount of time to warm. And as we are experiencing these warmer lakes over time, the lakes are warming up. Some of the organisms that live there that are experiencing, that enjoy or need cold water systems, we're losing those. So things like trout and some of the other cold water fish. And so as the lakes are warming up, we're losing some of those organisms. We also see the warming lakes actually affect anoxia down at the bottom. So this is the low amount of oxygen down at the bottom, and that can also kill off a lot of organisms. So really what we have are two different stories of problems with the environment at a global or regional scale. Acid rain, which has been a really big problem, especially in the 1970s and 1980s. But because of technology, because of improvements to those technologies, we've actually seen improvements in acid rain and recovery of some ecosystems across our area. Climate change, on the other hand, is going in the other direction, and we're continuing to see things go worse and worse. So it's really important to think about addressing those changes, minimizing fossil fuel use, and really improving the environment going forward into the future. Thank you.